said it once. We've said it 1,000 times. The truth shall always set you free. This is Tim. Let's get off my lawn. The mad ramblings of a Gen Xer. Want to talk about the Kamala Harris economic plan. Want to talk about greedflation. Greedflation's always been a favorite term of mine. I remember back in the 70s. This is what everything was going on with Jimmy Carter. We're not going to go into history because a lot of people don't even care about history. A lot of people don't even learn about history. A lot of people don't even learn about what happens with the gas lines, with inflation, with stagflation, everything that was under the Carter administration. And we're kind of heading that way again. And greedflation is basically
those evil corporations. They are going out and screwing the little man.
Yes, that's the Kamala Harris plan right now. We're going to hear it today, and I believe in Raleigh, North Carolina. All of her wonderful ideas, and one of her first, and I think it's the best idea she has. And of course, I'm being facetious. She wants to create a. Okay, now remember this: the government right now is in control of Social Security, which is a hot mess. They're in control of the mail, which is a failing organization and a hot mess. They're in control of Medicare, Medicaid, which are all hot messes. Anything that the government takes over usually turns out to be a harbinger of doom. And that's kind of what we're looking at, because on day one, her priority is going to be that she is going to give the Federal Trade Commission and state attorney generals the ability to impose harsh penalties on companies for setting excessively high prices. So we're going to go after the people that make our food. We are going to go after the people that provide jobs. We are going to go after the people that do everything for this country to keep the economy rolling.
Because they are corporate evil.
So we're going to go after all these guys. If you want to talk about Marxism, this is 100% Marxism. You actually are going to go after private corporations with the federal government and say to them, you are charging too much. How are you going to actually fulfill this claim? How are you actually going to prove this claim? Remember when Biden came out about a year ago and said, we have to go after the gas stations because they're gouging the prices? Well, no. Majority of gas stations aren't price gouging. Majority of gas stations make pennies on the dollars on gas, because I know people that own gas stations. All their money is usually made through convenience stores. That's why the majority of gas stations you go into have a convenience store, because that's where they make their profits. They are not making the profits on the fuel on the ground. They charge based on what they are charged to purchase the gas. That's how that works, Joe. So you're going to have to prove that these people, these
evil corporations,
are gouging the prices. It's Marxism. So you're going to give the control to the federal government to do this. We're going to keep up. We have a little chart here. It's grocery profit margin compared to market averages. And I think I'm not even going to talk about the chart. We're just going to leave the chart up here. I don't know what side it's on because I haven't put the chart up here. But we're going to just leave the chart here so you can see what's going on. Does anyone remember that back in the Soviet Union days, they had price controls of groceries? The government did. Does anyone remember that? I mean, I know that's crazy to think of, but does anyone remember that? She's also talking about including a per-child tax credit up to $6,000 for families, a tax credit for people without children who work lower-income jobs at $1,500, and a health care tax act providing $6,000 through the Affordable Care Act. This is all great. Who the fuck's going to pay for it? Oh, there's probably going to be some taxes
on the corporations and the rich.
That's what it's going to be. Now, I love it because the New York Times came out with an article. And the New York Times is not what I refer to as a bastion of hope for Republicans. It's usually a very liberal paper. And they even came out and said, Harris plans to ban grocery price gouging. What does the evidence say? I love one egg farmer. Because eggs shot up exponentially. And this one egg farmer said, listen, there are less eggs. That's why the price. Do you remember back in the day when the government killed all those hens and chickens for bird and swine flu, even though a lot of the farmers came out and said none of our chickens or hens tested positive for avian flu, not swine flu. Swine flu would be chicken. For avian flu, even though none of them tested positive, but they killed all the hens and chickens. So when you do something like that and you produce less of a product, it is a glitch or it is a issue in the supply chain. So what happens when you have less of something, the demand goes up, the price goes up. I know this seems like basic economics to some, but it's evidently not. And when you have world supply chain issues, which most economists are suggesting now are going to happen more frequently, and you're including trade wars, geopolitical instability, climate change. I love climate change. Because climate change, in some regards, the climate changes every year, guys. I'm not a climate change denier. It changes every year. Most scientists will tell you that. But there are areas where you have droughts. You have areas where the precious resources that we need to literally create these products are in such high demand, and the cost of fuel, the cost of manpower, the cost of machinery to refine, to dig, to get these minerals has shot up exponentially as well. And the fact that you have like two countries who control the majority of these minerals in India and China, because we don't want to do that. And when it comes to mining, the United States over the last 30 years has, now not mining, of course, is not the cleanest operation, but over the last 30 years, the United States has created an ability to mine ore at a much more efficient level for the environment. Places like China and India don't do that. So when we talk about our carbon footprint, we've reduced our carbon footprint by quite a lot, while China and India have increased theirs because they are building coal plants weekly, monthly, to produce energy, to refine these products, to make money. And we refuse to do it here because we are protecting the environment. But the problem is this: we're also relying on our enemies in China, not India, but in China, to refine the products and manufacture the goods that we need. We learned that during COVID. But again, we don't learn the lessons of the past because we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to talk about the fact that Biden overheated the economy with the economic rescue plan, where with those $1,400 payments to consumers. So then you now have consumers with money chasing little amount of goods, less amount of goods, which causes, wait for it, inflation. You are headed towards a Marxist country when you're sitting there saying that you are going to allow the federal government to go after corporations for their greed, for their profits, for price gouging, even though you have no way to prove it. You have no way to prove that they are doing this. And the fact that they could probably prove to you easier that they're not doing it. I remember when Biden was going after grocery stores. Grocery stores are charging too much. They are charging what they need to survive because they have overhead. They have power. They have employment. They have health insurance. They have delivery fees. They have all these things. But it's going to be a message for the swing voters that there's the evil corporation boogeyman that is causing you all this pain. Factories shut down in 2021. We had supply chains issues. We had a rapid increase in inflation in 2021, 2022. Inflation went up even more during the start of the Russia-Ukraine war. And I love it because it was the Putin price hikes. No, it was the fact that we're diverting resources, and we get a lot of grain from Ukraine. But we don't want to talk about those things because, again, it's another supply chain issue. The consumer price index climbed to 2.9% through July. And the data this week showed that inflation has dipped to 3% since 2021. But that's the rate of inflation. That's not inflation. Inflation on some goods are over 20-something%. Now, of course, companies are able to rake in the big profits for a very simple reason. Consumer demand was very strong. The Fed and congressional efforts to boost households during the pandemic with that $1,400 payment, again, helped overheat the economy. You have people with money chasing less goods, which causes inflation. And like I said, when you have these shortages and higher cost of raw materials, and it costs more to manufacture something, the prices of the goods or services has to be passed on to someone. And if you have to have the evil corporate boogeyman, and that's what most people are going to like, because it's going to be the more simplistic option for people. It's going to be they can understand more that it's everyone's fault but yours. It's everyone's fault but the federal government's. I'm trying to find my notes here, because I'm also watching the stock market at the same time, because the stock market's already down. We had a good week after that horrendous week. The Kamala Harris plan also is going to help cash-strapped renters by blocking data firms from hiking lease rates, by preventing Wall Street investors,
because there's the evil Wall Street,
from buying homes in bulk and reselling them at a premium. Yes, some people have done that, but that's not one of the problems that is causing the housing issue. It's interest rates. It's the fact that there's an issue in reference to getting products to build homes. I'll give you a good example. We were going to move. To another state a couple of years back. And we actually were in the process of building a house. And we had a date that the house was going to start being built, and they had a finish date, a completion date. But that completion date kept getting pushed back because of the fact that they couldn't get the lumber. They couldn't get the supplies. They couldn't get the roofing materials. Now, that house, which a couple of years back probably would have cost like $300,000, was selling for $490,000. And the builder had such an issue selling these homes. Like I said, they were doing everything they possibly could in reference to helping with mortgage payments and helping with closing costs, that they were just giving stuff away. But the rate of the interest rate was just the interest rate was just so high, nobody was buying. So under this, Harris will call for the U.S. to construct 3 million new housing units over the next 4 years. In order to facilitate that, she will call for new tax incentives for builders to construct starter homes. So they're going to give more tax incentives. So in other words, we are giving out more money. The federal government's giving out more money. Our rate of debt right now is so insane, we are going to go out and give more money. Now, of course, any of these changes that she wants to make is going to require congressional approval. And it's really going to matter who controls both the House and the Senate. I love it because I love this came from a fact sheet of the Harris plan. As the supply of entry-level homes expands, the Harris plan would provide working families who have paid rent on time for the next 2 years and are buying their first home up to $25,000 in down payment assistance with a more generous support for first-generation homeowners. Where are we getting this $25,000 from? Does anyone know? Bueller? Where's this $25,000 coming from? Oh, it's going to be more taxes. She's also looking to expand the $35 cap on insulin and Medicare recipients. Let me see what else. She's also restoring the expanded child care credits, which first introduced during the COVID pandemic and a longstanding goal of the Biden administration. So we're gonna extend those. But what are we gonna do with the tax? What are we gonna do with the Trump tax cuts? Because they're going to go after corporations. We had one of the highest tax levels for corporations in years until Trump came in, and then amazingly, after you cut that, inflation was almost nothing. You had jobs. You had an economy that was rolling, but you also put money back in. I know
we talk about the evil corporations.
We talk about the evil corporations, but we also don't talk about the fact that he also put money back into your paycheck weekly. So if those tax credits expire like they're supposed to in 2025, that couple $100 you see a week and extra in your check that you've probably forgotten about over the last 3.5, 4, 5 years is going to go away. And what are we going to do about gas prices? How are we going to stop relying on Venezuela, on OPEC, on Saudi Arabia, on all these other countries, because we were energy independent that last year on the Trump administration. So all these wonderful things that she wants to do, all these Marxist ideas that we want to go after these evil corporations who only supply the services and the goods and the jobs and the money for people to live. We're going to go after all of them because they're evil. Remember that. They are evil. If you want a Marxist, communist, socialist state, here you go. She's going to do this within the first 100 days. She can't prove price gouging. She can't prove any of this, but she is going to allow the federal and local governments to go after corporations that they deem are gouging prices. This is Soviet Union stuff. It's greedflation. This is Soviet Union type style government. And we saw how well it worked out. We saw how well it worked out for the Soviet Union. We saw the fall and the collapse of the Soviet Union. We saw how well that worked out for their economy for years. Wait, get smart, people. Look into this. Don't just say, oh, we're going to do all these great things. All these wonderful things that she wants to give, all these giveaways she wants to have, comes with a price. Comes with a higher personal tax. Comes with a higher corporate tax. And she'll say, well, we're not going to tax anyone making under $400,000. Okay, but we also are not going to go after people with the IRS, even though we hired 88,000 additional. We're going to hire 88,000 additional agents because they're all going after the millionaires, even though there are probably more IRS agents than there are millionaires in this country. But that's okay. And where does it stop? You are now being taxed on things such as eBay, on the Venmo payments. You are now going to be taxed when you sell things on Etsy. You're being taxed that now. Before now it's only $600. Before it was $20,000. You're going to be taxed on all that this year, guys. Or do we forget about these things? So who's to say that the government's not going to say, eBay, you're price gouging. We have to fine you. And when these corporations receive these fines, where do you think they're going to pass on the pricing to? The price increases to? Oh, yes, the consumer. I get more and more worried every day. There's more and more signs of the pending doom and the apocalypse. We're going to talk about that on Monday, especially that fish that just popped up off the coast of California, which is also referred to as the harbinger of doom. So stay tuned for that. Enjoy your weekend. And remember this, the truth shall always set you free. This is Tim, let's get off my lawn. The Mad Randomies of Gen Xer. And I'm out of here.